Welcome to Take It from the Ironwoman. My name is Susanne Müller, your host and the Ironwoman. This podcast is about empowering yourself and others to make real changes in the world. Take It from the Ironwoman. We only have special guests, and today we are in for a real treat to learn with Deborah Cole. In her biography, it says, after 35 years leading teams and managing multi-million-dollar projects, the former business owner and leader enthusiastically shares her wisdom, stories, and documentary-style photography with others. Seems like there's so much we can uncover. Introduce yourself, Deborah, and let's just see where this leads us and what can we learn from you.
I'm Deborah Cole. I live part-time in Austin, Texas, and I live part-time in Puerto Vallarta, Mexico. I'm in two places back and forth. I started a business. I always considered myself an accidental entrepreneur because I grew up in an era when it was not assumed that women would have professions more than, and these are admirable professions, but that when you aspired to the top of your professional goals, you would be a nurse, a teacher, and those were really the two biggies. There were many other things you could do, but those were the two you aspired to. I never thought of owning a business, much less a business involved in construction that was in a man's world. I was teaching. I received a bachelor's degree from the University of Texas and then a master's degree from Texas A&M University. I had a husband, a child, and I thought, I'll teach. And
you fit into the square, we put you in a box.
If you were in the business world, you were there in a support staff and a support role. That's generalizing, totally generalizing. That's the culture that I grew up in as well. That once my mother got married, she stopped working. She didn't work again until she was much, much later in life. I was the first person in my generation to go to college. And to go to college was, well, you can go to college or not, but I wanted to go to college. I was curious. And I would say that the one attribute that I have, my children now tease me about it, is that I'm perpetually curious. Bachelor's degree, master's degree, a teaching position, and then a friend who happened to be a landscape architect said, there's a business for sale. Why don't we buy this business? I had very little business background. I'd taken a few business courses, but no business background. And I thought, well, why not? Said, as long as I don't have any money, as long as I don't have to invest a lot in it. And she said, no. We'll each put in $1,000. We'll start from scratch. We'll build a business. We did. It was a landscape design and construction firm, just the two of us. Quickly, we started to grow because we were, from my perspective, women who had attention to detail, who were keen in customer service, who most of our clients were women at the time. We were doing residential work. We knew how to speak their language. We were different enough that people really sought us out. Well, very quickly, we went from residential to commercial, having the same, if you look at the attributes of women, which men also have, but women just really know how to bring them forward. We were able to, the customer service we had, the attention to detail, the being on time, on budget, we brought those all to the business world. We grew very quickly. My business partner left, and after about 3 years, and so for the next 35 years, I ran the business myself. We became quite large, very large. And we had 10 locations all over the state. And then I started to think about an exit strategy. And that's the one thing when I speak with women that are starting businesses, I always say, get all your ducks in a row, your legal ducks, your financial ducks, your security ducks, get every duck in a row. But also, very importantly, know your exit strategy.
Why the exit strategy?
Because I make the assumption that people are going to be successful. And if you are hit by a bus, if you have a family emergency that requires you to exit the business, if you have a business partner that you need to know how you're going to unwind the business, because it's a living entity, this business, or there's an illness. Nothing is permanent. Based on Buddhist philosophy and my personal, nothing is permanent. Figure out how you're going to end. And the exit strategy may be, with this business, I'm going to pass it on to my children. But what if your children don't want it? It's figuring out those things very early on. Because after 3 years, when my business partner wanted to leave, we had no earthly idea how to separate. And then it becomes ugly. It becomes like a divorce, different idea. And it's just, and you lose, I lost a friend for a short period. If you think, oh, well, I'm just going to do this for fun, I'm not, and which is fine. I'm not going to invest a lot of money or time in it. My very first business, when I decided I wanted to end it, I didn't have anything other than an answering service and I had no assets. I just shut it down. That's a very important thing to do. But at any rate, after 35 plus years, I thought my husband was ill, and I thought I need to really think about what I want for the future of this company, because by that time we were about a $30 million company and I had hundreds of employees. What I did was I thought, I want to pass this on to the employees. How can I do it? I spent about 3 years investigating different ways to turn a business over to the employees, to sell it to the employees, to give it to the employees, to sell it to an outside company, how to exit. And what I found was an employee-owned company a friend of mine worked for in Arizona. We took us about a year to work it all out. We merged. My company joined with his company. What it meant was, and we became an ESOP, an employee stock ownership plan, so that the employees then own the company. And I could exit at any time. I stayed on 8 more years and then I exited. So it allowed me to cash out of the company. I was paid for my stock in the company. The employees then own the stock. At that point, I thought, I have lived most of my adult life as the president of a company. By that time, by the time I left, we were just at $50 million company with 500 employees. And I thought, how do I take what I love doing? I never showed up a day that I didn't love it. But by that time, the employees were all running it. They were doing great. They all ran the operations. In my head, I wanted to make myself irrelevant. And I became irrelevant in my head. They could keep it running and growing. What am I going to do? Because I still have lots and lots of energy. And I took 3 of the things that I loved, that I enjoyed the most. One was I enjoyed the creative side, which for me was the writing. This wasn't in my job description. I just enjoyed doing it. I wrote all the safety programs. I wrote all of the orientation programs. I recorded all of the videos for the training programs. I used to write all of the articles for magazines. I wrote all of our marketing materials. Writing was one. The other was the photography, because I wanted to record everything that we did. It got to the point where not only did I record projects that we built and maintained, but I did videos of the employees. I did photographs of them. I produced our newsletter and I plastered it all with the photographs I took. I put stuff up on the walls. I used it in marketing. I used it in national awards entries. And so I thought, I love doing photography. I want to work on those 2. And then also, I really enjoyed doing the outreach that we did, the education with clients, with companies that we worked with. And so I wanted to do some public speaking. Those are the things I wanted to do. I said, okay, how can I do this? One of them was, well, I want to support women entrepreneurs, because I was one of the few women in the commercial arena. I was the second largest company in the country that was woman-owned. And I thought, there are not many women that own construction companies. I want to support women entrepreneurs. I want to use my photography. And my first book was a book of my photography. It was called Letting Go, How Less Becomes More. And it was my photography plus my story of how I let go of my identity. Many identities as a mother. My children were grown and gone. My husband had become sick and had passed away. I was president of a company and no longer. Those were identities that I held. And I wanted to tell the story of here's how I let go of those. And here's what I've produced, my photography. That was the first book. Second book was to support women. And I interviewed, it was about the time COVID hit. I interviewed 35 women entrepreneurs, and I told their stories and I photographed them in their places of business. After that book was out, that came out in January of 2022, the CEO of an organization called Black Women in Business said, I'd like you to do the same thing for our organization. Then the third book, which came out in January of this year, it's called Black Women in Business, A Journey in Resilience. I interviewed 21 women of color and told their stories. I'm able to take the things that I really enjoyed about my business life.
Congratulations, first, we have to say. This is amazing. And it seems like when you're telling us the story, everything seems so easy. You're curious, you do what you can, you go for it, and you're successful. How can we follow you, or what are the obstacles that you were facing?
A lot of obstacles. Well, along with curiosity, I'm also blessed with the belief that the universe conspires for our goodness and for our benefit and for our health and well-being. There are plenty of obstacles. COVID was a huge obstacle. That was an obstacle that the entire world felt. And then personally, people felt the loneliness, the isolation. And so it was during that time that I was writing the book about women entrepreneurs. As I interviewed them, we talked about that. How do you run your business, not just with COVID shutting things down, but just the feelings? I know that there are troubles that come along for everybody, but I also know that it's not, and some of them you can't fix some things, but it's the attitude of how you deal with it. For me, it helps. And I always check in with one of my daughters who's a therapist, and I'll say, help me out here. Am I avoiding this situation? Because I still feel angry. I feel used. I feel alone. I feel those feelings, but I just choose to really feel them. And then I'm not like Pollyanna looking for the end of the rainbow. I know that there's a lesson in everything. And I'm blessed with good health.
What does your daughter, the therapist, tell you?
She always says that we all have this part of us that avoids, and not just me, but that people in general, that it's easier just to bypass the hard feelings. And it's sitting with it, recognizing it, admitting it. During the pandemic, when my husband died, I was alone. I was alone with the grief. I had no family around. Friends weren't getting together. I couldn't see him in the hospital. There was no funeral. There were none of those things. And it's just recognizing that feels horrible. It feels horrible.
And saying that word, horrible, it's okay.
Yeah.
It's
and lonely.
Really okay.
People don't like to say, I feel alone or lonely, but loneliness is a real epidemic in our nation. It's just, for me, it's a matter of recognizing it, dealing with it, and not just coping, but dealing with it and then looking at the tools that I've got available to me to help me overcome it.
Very wise advice. And I always ask the question, what do you do when you don't work? It seems like you're a businesswoman, you're a speaker, you're a writer, you're a photographer.
Are you using the general you or me specifically?
You specifically.
What I'm doing, I've curtailed speaking, and now I'm focusing and I'm putting the writing, I'm having the writing being 25% of what I do. I still write for a couple of magazines, and I'm going to be writing for the new book I'm working on, but I'm really focusing on photography. So I've been spending a lot of my time either actually photographing, editing, learning from expert. Here comes the curiosity again, looking at what my shortcomings are and finding people that can teach me those things. Because I'm working on a project in Mexico. So that's how I spend a lot of my time, traveling to Mexico.
Vaya con Dios.
Sí.
Well, you gave us so much wisdom, and it also feels like you're never giving up. You're going and you look positive and exude this positivity and creativity. So we can only learn from you. Thank you so much for giving us a glimpse into your world. And we want to see your next book. Hopefully we can talk to you again when that next book is out there. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
What are you taking away from this conversation? A businesswoman taking her passion now, curiosity, photography, writing, and speaking. Vaya con Dios. Take it from the Ironwoman. We have episodes every Monday. Chime in, learn with people, grow with people, and also download the book, Global Business Coaching with Sports Parallels. Thank you for your support, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.